In 1982, my company sent me to Pittsburgh to work on a project. They were paying for all my per diem, and at the end of the year, the IRS decided whenever you're on temporary location for more than 12 months, it's not a temporary location, and all that per diem became taxable income overnight. And so I had a big problem. I owed the government a bunch of money and had to scramble to be able to pay that. So that was back when I thought the IRS was a legitimate agency. I started studying the IRS, the 16th Amendment, the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, and I quickly came to the conclusion that most of what our government does is unconstitutional. Now, naturally, I was in denial. I couldn't believe that would be possible, and I continued doing research, and unfortunately, the more research I did, the more it supported my conclusion that our government is out of control. Eventually, I read Preacher from Jekyll Island, written by my friend J. Edward Griffin.
Mm-hmm.
And when I read that book, I realized that I was wrong. The situation was far worse than I had imagined. And after reading Preacher from Jekyll Island, I've been on a crusade to restore a constitutional republic, to teach people the difference between rights and privileges. In 2004, I was the Libertarian nominee for president, and 2006 I ran for Congress. I've done a radio show for 2 years, which is no longer on the air, and I tell people that liberty is not my highest priority. Right now, liberty is my only priority.
Well, that's a good mindset to be on for sure. You talk about the Creature from Jekyll Island, and we just had G. Edward Griffin on the show about 2 weeks ago, and I mean, what a fascinating guy that is. He could fill hours and hours and hours of radio just based on all of his life experience and what he's done. But a fantastic book indeed, and it just goes to show you just how much of a fraud the Federal Reserve actually is. And I guess that leads me to my next question is, we see a lot of people now that are exercising their sovereignty based on their constitutional rights. And in order to do that, do people have to pull away from the monetary system that we're currently entangled in, I guess you could say? Do they have to go to, say, a gold and silver-based system? Because I noticed, like, on your website, people can pay for your seminar using gold or silver. I think, what is it? How many ounces?
They can pay gold, too, if they think they want to do that. But, I require 4 ounces of silver.
Mm-hmm. And how do you go about functioning if you get paid in silver? I mean,
well, not everybody pays in silver.
Mm-hmm.
A few years ago, I would get maybe 1 out of 10 people paying in silver, and as time has gone by, people are becoming more and more aware of the fraud that the Federal Reserve is. I'd say I'm up to about 40% of the people. 4 out of 10 people prefer to pay with silver. Well, for me, I prefer that as well, because even though I can't pay my rent with silver today, I'm willing to bet that by the end of 2011, that's the only type of money that they'll take for my rent.
Do you really think we're that close, Mike? Do you really think we're there?
Absolutely. I left I left California to come to Texas back in 1997. I thought the economy was going to collapse then. I mean, I was running around like Chicken Little going, oh, my God, the economy's going to die. I liquidated all of my IRA, and I bought gold and platinum. And, I was like in a foxhole waiting for the system to crash. And it has, over the last 10 years, more and more signs have been coming out. And I'm fairly confident. and it's not just me. It's not Michael Badnarik going off on some wild tangent. If you listen to almost any of the economic experts, they are all predicting a terrible crash. One of the most common threads that I've heard is it's going to be worse than the Great Depression of the 30s, and that it's going to be soon. Now, I mean, none of us have a calendar. The Federal Reserve is not sending us email updates telling us which day, they're going to completely drop the U.S. dollar.
Right.
But there are signs. When I was younger, my passion in life was scuba diving. And, there were times when you'd be underwater and you'd be surrounded by fish and you'd be looking at, the coral and taking photographs. And all of a sudden, you notice there are no fish in the water. And you just kind of look around and you and your buddy are there all by yourself and there are no fish. When, just moments ago, there were hundreds, if not thousands. Well, that's a clue. That's a clue that it's probably time to get out of the water. If all the fish have disappeared, that's a hit because they know better than you do. And right now I have that same feeling, the same feeling I used to have when I was underwater and all the fish disappear. We've had, in the last 2 years, Americans have purchased 85 million additional guns. And that was on top of about the 300 million, I think, that we had in the United States beforehand. And for most of 2009, you couldn't find ammunition. Walmart told me that they had an ammunition shipment come in about every 3 days. They said, we don't bother to put it on the shelf. We just put it on a cart, and it's gone in 2 hours.
Right. I ran into the same problem here down in North Carolina. Exact same problem. It was nationwide.
People are not buying ammunition because there's been this sudden urge to go quail hunting.
Right.
I mean, people are finally starting to catch on that, things may be a little bit dicey in the next coming few years.
Yeah.
So you've got the gun purchases. You've got the U.S. dollar has for many, many decades been the world's currency. Everything can be converted to or from U.S. dollars. Oil, anytime you wanted to buy oil, you had to buy U.S. dollars first. Well, now I think the oil is now based in the euro, which is not that much stronger than the dollar. China and Russia have decided they are no longer going to do their business transaction with U.S. dollars. They're going to use their own Russian and Chinese money. The only reason that the United States dollar is still considered to be worth anything is because China has been continuing to purchase all of our treasury bonds. I mean, you got to make it worth something somewhere. And China has announced that they're no longer going to be purchasing our treasury bonds. I mean, I don't know when that's going to happen, but when China decides to stop buying treasury bonds, everybody in the world is going to realize what is already true, and that is the American dollar is worthless.
Absolutely right. And
absolutely worthless. And the only reason that people are still using it is because they didn't get the memo. You're going to the store and buying groceries with monopoly money. In fact, Americans would be better off using monopoly money because Parker Brothers doesn't print nearly as much money as the Federal Reserve.
That's true. And they don't even have to print it anymore. Now it's all keystroke, which makes it even easier for them to just create money out of thin air. But, I brought up an example of just how far down we've come, just say in the last 60 years or so. For some reason, I went to Walmart one day and I got a $10 bill back, and the $10 bill had it was from 1950, And the 1950 Federal Reserve note is a lot different than today's Federal Reserve note, because in 1950 the currency at the time was still backed by silver. So the difference is, it said pay to the bearer on demand $10. And up on top, instead of this note is legal tender for all debts, public and private, it said that, but it also said, and can be redeemed at any Federal Reserve bank for honest legal money. So what does that say about what we have now? You know what I mean? It's a horrible scam that they're pulling, I for one just can't see it continue to perpetuate, because it's backed by nothing. It really is nothing when you think about it. I know my audience gets sick of hearing it, because my one of my co-hosts who's not here right now, AC Griffith, he asks all the time. He says, "What's a dollar? Can anybody tell me what a dollar is? I know what a Federal Reserve note is, but I can't figure out what a dollar is. Can somebody tell me what a dollar is? I want to put my hand on it, And nobody can do that. John King, you're familiar with Griff's rant all the time, aren't you?
I'm not sure. Who are we talking about?
John King, my co-host, John.
Right.
Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay,
and,
very good.
Yes, I do. He's always asking for the description of what a dollar is. It's fiat currency. What a note is, and nobody can describe what that note is because it's not defined. However, I think what each state should do is set up their own bank, like the Bank of Texas, and issue their own money, much like they're doing in Ithaca, New York, basing that money not on gold nor silver, but on man hours. And upon being able to issue their own money in each state, that money they can actually loan themselves money at zero interest, and as well as pay off the federal deficit by loaning the federal government money on a 0% interest rate.
Well, John, really, when you think about it, and we've hit on this, seeing as how it is a scam. And let me ask you this, Michael: do you think that we could solve the problems of this country with a pencil eraser?
No, not at this point.
So at this point, you think the only way is for it to come down, crash, and burn?
Well, it's going to come crashing down and burning. There isn't a thing that anybody can do to stop that.
Mm-hmm.
Much like the tidal wave that hit India back in 2003.
Mm-hmm.
The earthquake in the middle of the ocean lifted the water up, and you suddenly had this 60-foot wall of water moving, across the ocean. Well, it was moving at about 50, 60 miles an hour, and it was going to take 14 hours to actually make landfall. But at that point in time, it's coming. There's nothing you can do about it. The only thing you need to do, that you can do, is be aware of it and, get the heck off the beach. But, people were sitting around on the beach and they were eating ice cream and rubbing suntan oil on themselves, completely oblivious, to the danger that was happening. And even when the water was arriving at the beach, people stood and watched it because they were in disbelief. Well, we've had people, predicting this economic crash for at least a decade, and the signs are becoming more and more evident. And anybody who doesn't know that the economy is going to crash has buried their head in the sand or someplace else. And those are the people who are going to be unprepared, just like the people on the beach watching the tsunami come in. The people who have failed to store up a year to a year and a half supply of food, people who have not converted their assets to silver and gold, people who don't have guns and ammunition to protect their food and their valuables are not going to survive. I mean, even the people who are prepared are going to struggle. I mean, it's going to be harsh.
Yeah.
But I mean, we can equate this to the Titanic sinking. There were some people who were in lifeboats, and life was not very good. But compare that to the people who were treading water, in the icy Atlantic. Being in a lifeboat is a huge improvement. So at this point in time, it's not possible to stop the economic collapse. I mean, it's going to happen. There is going to be a huge shortage of food, which is going to result in, quote, civil unrest. That's the politically correct term. It sounds so much more pleasant than rioting in the streets. But when all these people realize that money is worthless and there is no food, psychologists tell us that your neighbors, after 3 days without food, your neighbors are willing to steal from you, and after 7 days without food, your neighbors are willing to kill you.
Yeah, probably eat you too.
And so I know that I'm going to die sooner or later, but it's not going to be because I starved to death.
Right.
You don't want to be in an airplane crash in the Andes with me. So it is very, very close to every man and woman for themselves. You need to, be seriously thinking about your own survival, your own protection, the protection of your family, and if you've been farsighted enough to stock up on food, the next thing that you need to do is start establishing or improving relationships with the people in your apartment complex, people in your neighborhood. These are the people that you are going to need to rely on. They're going to need to rely on you. And, if you are friends with the people in your neighborhood, they are more likely to knock on your door and ask for a crust of bread rather than just try to kick the front door down looking for your last jar of peanut butter.
It is going to be some perilous times, that's for sure. And when we come back, folks, we'll continue our conversation with Michael Badnarik here on the Intel Hub News Network. This is Joe Joseph, Freedomlink Radio. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
In a world where corrupt oppressors and oligarchs have seized control of the populations, total tyranny is amongst us. The burden of humanity rests on our shoulders. The only way out is to expose the global crime syndicate known as the New World Order. Together, we are all one. Together, we are Intel soldiers. The battle for free humanity ensues. Join us in the fight. TheIntelHub.com.
A very wealthy U.S. citizen is predicting that in 2011, we will witness the most important day in America in more than 50 years. He says it will change everything about our lives. The way you shop, travel, invest, educate your children, and even how you take care of your health and family. Now this man has made some outrageous predictions over the years, but the crazy part is he's usually right. You see, he predicted the collapse of GM, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and America's biggest mall owner, General Growth Properties, a few years ago. In fact, Baronis called his work a dire prophecy. Now, this has nothing to do with the stock market, but it could have a huge impact on almost every aspect of your life. And recently he created a video which you can watch online for free, detailing his biggest and most important prediction yet. And it's a real eye-opener. I can't stress this enough. You should at least watch this free video online today. He explains everything you need to know, including simple steps you can take to protect yourself. You can find the video at www.endofamerica8.com. Although this video may be offensive to some audiences, it's worth checking out. Again, that's www.endofamerica8.com. Watch this free video at www.endofamerica8.com. You are listening to the Intel Hub News Network, crushing the New World Order piece by piece. Secure your future. Get your non-hybrid seed pack now. With the looming economic crisis, food shortages, and other toxic disasters, now is the time to be ready. Just click on the Heirloom Organics banner at the top of our Blog Talk Radio page today. Secure your future and the future of your family in hard times. Heirloom Organic Seeds.
Join me, Joe Joseph, John King, and A.C. Griffith, Thursdays and Sunday evenings at 8 p.m. Eastern for Freedomlink Radio on the Intel Hub News Network. Well, folks, we're back with our good friend Michael Badnarik. John King is here with me, and we're talking about the Constitution. We're talking about freedom. We're talking about all hell breaking loose, and we're taking your phone calls. The number to call, 877-598-8549, if anybody's got anything to add to that. You know, you were talking about, Michael, you were talking about the shortage of food that is set to occur, and I mean, we can take a look at what's going on with world events and see, look at how wacky the weather's been and the toll that it's taking not only this summer on the wheat crops in Russia and the extreme heat we felt here, especially on the East Coast. We had a string here in North Carolina of, I think it was like 36 straight days over 100 degrees, which was nuts. And it really...
Sounds like Texas.
Yeah, I mean, you think maybe it would be, but it wasn't. It was North Carolina, the Great Dismal Swamp. I mean, we're known for our humidity, but we're definitely not known for 100-degree days, especially that many in a row. And now we're seeing an extremely harsh winter. As a matter of fact, on Drudge Report today, there was an article on there saying that this could be the worst winter Great Britain has seen in 1,000 years. So you're absolutely right. I don't know if it's going to be just one event, i.e. the economy, that's going to bring it all down. But I will say this. I will say that it's going to be a culmination of things kind of all coming together at the same time, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. It's going to be a perfect storm of perfect storms. And, again, the people who are well prepared are going to be miserable. The people who are unprepared are not going to live to see the other end of this problem.
Absolutely right. And, you know, I wanted to bring this up today on our broadcast and get your feel on it, just so people understand how dire our financial situation is right now in this country. There's a 17 statistics, I guess you could say, that came out today. It's an article that came out, and it was done on the Economic Collapse blog. And as I go through these, I want to get your input on them, Mike, to get a feel for how you think this is all going to play out. I mean, we know that collapse is imminent, but I mean, this really puts it in clear perspective for people that may not really believe it. And it says, as of December 28th, the U.S. national debt was $13.9 trillion. And I know that that's not a true number. The true number is actually a lot higher than that. But it doesn't even matter because 13.9 trillion is such an astronomically high number that we couldn't even begin to think to repay. And at this moment, to repay the U.S. national debt at a rate of $1 per second, it would take over 440,000 it's just so crazy. 440,000 years to pay off the national debt.
I'm probably not going to be alive by the time that happens.
No, methinks that science can only advance so far in anti-aging before. So, I mean, okay, so that's not so good, and again, number 3, if the federal government began repaying the national debt at a rate of $10 million a day, it would still take 3,800 years to pay off the national debt. Again, don't think I'm going to be alive then.
I'll be using a walker. Yep. Probably be in a wheelchair by that time.
Yeah, probably so. It says the U.S. national debt is increasing by roughly $4 billion every single day. I mean, that's an astronomical number.
We don't even use the phrase astronomical anymore. Now we talk about economic numbers because astronomical numbers are small by comparison. And part of the problem is that Americans never learned arithmetic. They never learned how to count. Mm-hmm. Million, billion, and trillion, we know that they're numbers and they rhyme, so they've got to be kind of close, right?
Sure.
A billion is 1,000 million. So we're talking $4,000 million every single day. That's how much we're going into debt. Now, a trillion is a million. Let me kind of put this in perspective for some of your listeners. Mm-hmm. Most of us know what an inch is. You put 12 inches together and you get a foot, okay? If you put a million inches together, you'll go 15.7 miles. I don't even want to walk 15.7 miles. That's that's a million inches.
That's right.
A billion inches is obviously 1,000 times that. It's 15,700 miles, which is about 3/4 the way around the Earth. A trillion inches, 1 trillion inches, will orbit the equator 633 times. And that's in inches.
And that's in inches. That's right. That's right. Let me take it a step farther. I'll take it a step farther, and I'll tell you that the U.S. government is borrowing approximately $2.63 million every minute. I mean, I wish I had $2.63 million right now. And that would suit me just fine.
At my age, that would take me the rest of my life. I could stop working.
Oh, man, that'd be great. But
liberty could be somebody else's problem.
That's right. Absolutely right. Number 6 says, on September 30th, 1980, the U.S. national debt was $907 billion. Just 30 years later, the U.S. national debt is over 14 times larger. Now, in the last 30 years, Michael, we've seen the national debt skyrocket. As a matter of fact, it was a crisis 30 years ago when our national debt hit $1 trillion. I mean, it was a major crisis. And look at where we are now. And it makes you wonder, I mean, do these guys know that they're not going to repay it? I mean,
they know. I mean, if you're talking about members of Congress and members of the Federal Reserve, yes, absolutely they know. They were the ones that set up this Ponzi scheme. It's the workers in America, the people who are getting up, grabbing their Starbucks, driving to work, taking the kids to soccer practice. Those are the people who don't know how to count. They're busy, cashing their paycheck, putting food on the table, and, just trying to get by. And about 2 years ago now, we had the $1 trillion bailout. And everybody was upset. Well, they weren't upset with the $1 trillion bailout. Right. They were upset with the $1 million bonuses. You're you're all upset because we're giving $1 million to these CEOs. Now, I admit that we shouldn't be giving the CEOs $1 million, but you're all pissing and moaning about the $1 million and the million of the, the bailout itself. That didn't bother anybody? I guess if you don't understand how much $1 trillion is, then, well, hell, you just don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, let's figure out what a trillion is. Well, we'll take it one step farther. $1 trillion $10 bills, if they were taped end to end, would wrap around the globe more than 380 times. That amount of money would still not be enough to pay off the national debt, by the way. So, I mean, it's like I said, it's a total, absolute crazy amount of money that they've thrown away, and pretty much, here's another thing too. They always say, well, our grandchildren are going to be paying for this. No, they're not. No, they're not. If they're not going to pay for it, Congress, then how the hell are our grandchildren going to pay for it? The only way they're going to pay for it is they're going to have to really, really dig, and who knows if our society will be 1/10 of what it is today. It
won't.
Right.
It won't. See, I don't know how many. I mean, I haven't seen any recently, but when I was in college and shortly after college, I used to get all of these chain letters.
Mm-hmm.
And I think most of your listeners are familiar with the chain letter. Dear Joe, I'm sending you this letter. What you do is you put your name on the bottom of the list and send, $5 to the person on top of the list. And they do the math, and and you've got to send this letter to 5 people. They send it to 5 people, and that happens like 5 times. And you can do the arithmetic real easy. It comes out to like 625 people will get the letter. They will all send you $5 when your name gets to the top, and you'll have, $10,000, $15,000, whatever it is, just for sending out a couple of letters. Well, yes, the mathematics is true. 5 times 5 times 5 times 5, that's all works. But what doesn't work is the Ponzi scheme, because it only works if the 5 people that I send a letter to send their 5 letters to somebody else, and that those people, those 25 people, only send their 5 letters to people that are not on the list. Well, by the time you get to the 3rd level, what are the chances that your friend is also somebody who knows me, and they send one of their letters to me? Well, that short circuits the plan, and this can only keep working when you have new people to send the letters to. Well, after 10 times, you've had to send a letter to everybody in the United States. Who are they going to send their letters to? You need an infinite population for this to work, and it doesn't. And the thing is, it only works at the beginning. You start the letter, and while there's still only 625 people, stupid enough to fall for a chain letter, yeah, you're going to get, maybe even 100 envelopes in the mail with $5. Well, that's $500 that you didn't have just because other people were stupid and didn't understand math. And so we, the people of the United States, have been conned by this incredible Ponzi scheme.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's an incredible. I can't believe that people are still ignorant of what's going on. Joe, if you and I come to my garage and I use my special laser printer, and we watch the football game, and the laser printer is spitting out $20 bills while we're drinking beer and watching the game. At the end of the football game, we have maybe $10,000 in $20 bills. It's like, come on, we can rent a limo, get a couple of good-looking girls, we'll go out for surf and turf. Big night on the town.
Right.
Until we get caught. What's going to happen when we get caught?
Well, one of the things that, and this is good. This is a good example. That's one of the the 18 enumerated powers in the Constitution. The government has the right to go after counterfeiters.
It's the responsibility.
That's right.
To go after counterfeiters.
Absolutely.
So you and I are, drinking Dom Perignon. We got the good-looking girls in our arm, and the Treasury Department comes along and says, "Gentlemen, this money is a counterfeit. You cheated the system, and for printing $10,000 in phony money, you guys are going to jail for maybe 25 years." Okay, so if you and I get 25 years in jail for $10,000, what should happen to the people of the Federal Reserve that have been counterfeiting our money since 1913?
But, Michael, it doesn't work that way. The law doesn't exist. It's not the notion of no one is above the law isn't there anymore. It's okay for the banksters to do what they have to do. No problem.
Well, it is if we're stupid enough to go along.
Exactly right.
It's like, Joe, give me $100 and stay right here. I'll come back with your change.
Right. Exactly right.
I'll give my my mailing address. Everybody can put $25 in a self-addressed stamped envelope, and I'll send you your book on how to spot a con man. Wake up!
Wake up is right. And what people don't understand is that we have the power. The people actually have the power. Take a look at what happened over in France over a 2-year increase in the retirement age. They damn near shut the country down. And why? And how did they do it? They just didn't go to work. The truckers didn't drive their trucks. They didn't refine the gasoline. They didn't pick up the garbage.
They're sitting on the Champs-Elysees drinking a glass of wine, waiting for the government to realize that nothing's going to happen, until they start following the rules.
That's right.
And I almost feel sorry for the people currently in government and in the Federal Reserve when the American people get it. When the American public goes, wait a minute, you've been doing what?
Yeah, exactly right. And, I want to get into that whole, now that the quote-unquote Republicans have taken over, I want to get into all that. But first I want to go to the phone lines, right? I have somebody that's been waiting for a little while here. And we're going to go. Gwen in South Dakota, you're live on the air.
Hi, Joe.
Hi, how you doing?
Well, thank you. Did you have a good Christmas?
Yeah, we did very good. Very good. I mean, I'm not much of a holiday kind of guy. As a matter of fact, if it wasn't for extended family, we probably wouldn't even do celebrate quote unquote Christmas. We take some time for family purposes, but it's just one of those things. Sometimes there's too much politics involved, especially with family.
We did such a great thing at our house for Christmas. Instead of, first of all, we make most of our gifts, but we do random acts of Christmas every year, and that's always kind of our big thing that we do in the family. So it's kind of cool because we focus all of our attention on that instead of I want this and I want that kind of a thing. You know?
That's fantastic.
So it's kind of awesome. Well, I wanted to ask Mike what his thoughts are on the UCC1 remedy and redemption, if he thinks that, that we should be doing that, if it's too late in the game to even consider that, or what his thoughts are on that.
I've studied the UCC redemption, and it makes logical sense to me, given what I believe to be true about the fraud that has been perpetrated since 1913. However, you got to, take a step back and look at the big picture. The government doesn't follow the Constitution. They could care less about the Bill of Rights. They don't even follow their own laws. I mean, anybody who's gone into court to try to achieve a little bit of justice realizes very quickly that, well, okay, only the prosecutor is allowed to submit evidence. All the evidence that would exonerate you is inadmissible. And we're basically going to, the only thing missing from the courtroom are the kangaroos. So given that's true, I don't think it's very likely that we can fill out a UCC form or fill out some sort of piece of paper, mail it to the government, certified return receipt, and have them go, oh, my God, Michael figured it out. I guess we got to leave Michael alone now. These people lie, they cheat, they steal, and they murder. I'm not saying that the UCC-1 is not a legitimate process, or that it would be a legitimate process if we had legitimate politicians and statesmen in Washington, D.C. I'm saying that no piece of paper is going to solve the problem. I mean, you can't negotiate with terrorists.
That's right.
Do you think, Mike, that we're going to see more states' rights issues coming up, and the states just saying, this is enough, we're not doing this anymore? And are they going to get out of bed?
Well, see, the problem, when you've got the mafia, the mafia is all really good, well and good when they're pulling in enough money and everybody's happy. But then when the mafia has a limited amount of food and ammunition, then the people within the mafia start fighting among themselves, and they start shooting each other in order to get what, money they think they should have. Because there is no honor among thieves, contrary to what they say in the movies. So federal government has power, state legislators have power, and at the moment, the federal legislators are screwing over not only the people, which they've been doing for decades, but now they're starting to screw over the state legislatures. And, the state legislatures are going to be going, hey, wait a minute, we've got this 10th Amendment thing that says you can't do that. We're the ones in power. Because, if things were allowed to continue, the states would have no power whatsoever. There'd be no reason to be elected governor of any state because the Supreme Lord and Emperor in the White House would, sign an executive order, and that would be that. So, the system is falling apart. The economy is going to crash. The state and federal legislators, not the way that it's supposed to balance in power, but, there's just not enough to go around to keep all the thieves happy, and they're going to start fighting each other. But worse than that, when the economy crashes, there won't be enough food, and there will be lots and lots of people running around wondering literally where their next meal is coming from. And we're going to have rioting in the streets. The government is very likely to send in the National Guard, quote, to, restore law and order. The problem is it's going to be martial law and the government's orders. And, Mikey, don't play that game.
Mm-hmm.
My individual rights do not go away because there happens to be an emergency or because the president or the governor send in the military. The military only has authority under the Constitution. If they declare martial law, they are declaring that there is no Constitution. So if there's no Constitution, then the soldiers who are claiming to restore law and order have no legitimate authority, and it's every man, woman, and child for themselves.
Right. At that point, they just become a glorified warlord, is what it is.
That's exactly what it is. And again, if you don't see that already, then, you're pretty slow on the uptake here. Why is it a really, really bad idea to bring a baby tiger into the house? Oh, my God, he's so cute. Oh, look at how fuzzy he is. Why is it a bad idea to bring a baby tiger into the house? Because they grow up to be a big tiger. And we have allowed our cute, fuzzy little constitutionally limited government, with limited power, to grow up into a totalitarian dictatorship. Anybody who goes to the airport has to choose between a naked photograph and being what they call it gate raped. And those are your two choices if you want to get on an airplane to go visit Grandma?
Right, when it's been when the Supreme Court has upheld that it's your constitutional right to travel freely. They've upheld it now, time and time again.
We just kind of forget about it. And, God, I hate it when I can't remember who the quote is, but they said the level of tyranny is based on what the people are willing to tolerate.
That's true. That's true.
If you won't tolerate it, then you don't have that tyranny. And I'm not tolerating it. I am free. I am independent. I know what my rights are. And nobody's going to come along with a piece of paper, martial law, bunch of soldiers. I mean, Patrick Henry identified only 3 possible situations in life. The first situation is that you are living free with your liberty. The second situation is that you are fighting and possibly dying for your liberty. And the third possibility is that you just give up and live as a slave. Well, as far as Patrick Henry and I are concerned, I know not what others may do, but, there's no way. Give me liberty or give me death. Those are the only 2 choices. I'm going to either live free or I'm going to fight and die trying to be free.
Right.
I mean, that's just like, the world is round and gravity exists. It's a statement of obvious fact. So now my question to your listeners is the government allowing us to live free? Do you feel free going through a TSA check? Do you feel free when you see a squad car behind you in the rearview mirror? Do you feel free when you've got to give, 30, 40% of your money to the IRS every April 15th? It's like, wake up. We are not living free. I'm not going to live as a slave, and so there's only one choice. There's only one option left, and that is I am going to fight for my liberty. And hopefully, if I can wake up the other 300 million people who live in America, I won't have to die in the process. So, as I said earlier, liberty is not my highest priority. Liberty is my only priority. It is not worth living if you have to live as a slave.
I couldn't have said it better myself. That's exactly how I feel about it, and I'm sure Gwen, you guys feel the same. South Dakota is a very free. It's one of the more free states, or more freedom-loving states that I've noticed. Alongside Texas, North Carolina at one point was, and then it got invaded by all the people from the Northeast that came down and just totally decimated our system here. But
Joe, I don't want to embarrass you on the air, but South Dakota is not alongside Texas. We've got Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska. There are a couple states in between.
Oh no, I know that. Thank you so much. That was how short-sighted of it. I didn't do so good geography class, everybody. But well, how do you get over that? Ooh, I just pulled that knife right out of my back. Thank you. But I think you've said this before, Gwen. That how do people not know about this or take more of an interest in their freedom? And I think that it's the dumbing down of society over the last 2 or 3 generations, coupled with the fact that there is all these entitlements now and all of these, tax credits and things like that to entice you. And, look at this, the government's looking out for our best interest. Woo-hoo!
Joe, I did a presentation last Tuesday where 2 sitting state legislators were present, a county commissioner and a former state senator. And the presentation was on the Uniform Commercial Code. Mm-hmm. None of those people in that room knew that our city, our county, our state, and our federal government were a corporation. None of them knew that. They were shocked to learn that. the one senator came up to me afterwards, and he said, 20 years ago, I was a cop in Seattle, and I went to a Posse Comitatus meeting, and everybody thought they were whack jobs, and here you sit giving exactly the same information, and now, given what's happened in this country, it all makes perfect sense now. You know, I think there's just been an absolute deprivation of knowledge and education being given. However, Mike does a very eloquent job of educating, I might say. But, you know, I mean, we just have not educated ourselves to the degree that we should, and we've just kind of taken everything at face value. But in South Dakota, there's been a lot of chatter about, amongst the legislators that I associate with, about just absolutely exercising the 10th Amendment to the fullest extent of the law. The people here are just saying, absolutely, we do not want to take one penny of federal money. I don't care what happens. We'll deal with it, but just get the feds out of our business, which is really encouraging for me. The people here in South Dakota, we do. It is a government by the people and for the people here. We do tell our legislators what we want and what to do, not the other way around here. And we are a bunch of gun-toting rednecks and Indians that don't want to be messed with.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. Let's go to break, and when we come back, Gwen, stay on the line. We'll continue our conversation. On the other side of the commercial break, folks, we have the King's Court. We've got Michael Badnarik here. Generation Keeper Gwen is here. We'll be right back.
A very wealthy U.S. citizen is predicting that in 2011, we will witness the most important day in America in more than 50 years. He says it will change everything about our lives. The way you shop, travel, invest, educate your children, and even how you take care of your health and family. Now this man has made some outrageous predictions over the years, but the crazy part is he's usually right. You see, he predicted the collapse of GM, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and America's biggest mall owner, General Growth Properties, a few years ago. In fact, Baronis called his work a dire prophecy. Now, this has nothing to do with the stock market, but it could have a huge impact on almost every aspect of your life. And recently, he created a video which you can watch online for free, detailing his biggest and most important prediction yet. And it's a real eye-opener. I can't stress this enough. You should at least watch this free video online today. He explains everything you need to know, including simple steps you can take to protect yourself. You can find the video at www.endofamerica8.com. Although this video may be offensive to some audiences, it's worth checking out. Again, that's www.endofamerica8.com. Watch this free video at www.endofamerica8.com.
Are you still paying your credit cards and so-called bank loans thinking that you owe the money? Do you feel like it's your moral obligation but can't see an end in sight? Well, what if I told you that in truth, you don't owe a single penny, and that the banks know this and hope you don't find out? Here's where we come in. Free2Prosper.com specializes in a profound debt repudiation method which challenges the validity of your so-called debts, morally frees you from the burdens, and protects your property. Our system is often superior to settlement, bankruptcy, or consolidation, which often leave you in a worse situation. If you feel the moral obligation to take care of yourself and your family, then I urge you to consider taking action right now. The economy will not wait. If you want to know more so you can prosper through the economic collapse, all while staying honorable and true to yourself, then call 877-417-8393. That's 877-417-8393. Or visit free2prosper.com right now.
Make sure and listen to the P.A. Monsanto Show every Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Intel Hub News Network.
In a world where corrupt oppressors and all oligarchs have seized control of the populations. Total tyranny is amongst us. The burden of humanity rests on our shoulders. The only way out is to expose the global crime syndicate known as the New World Order. Together, we are all one. Together, we are Intel soldiers. The battle for free humanity ensues. Join us in the fight. theintelhub.com.
Well, we're back. We're joined by our guest tonight, Michael Badnarik, the 2004 Libertarian presidential candidate and author of the book, It's Good to Be King. We've got Gwen from South Dakota. She's on the line. And before we get back to our conversation, folks, I'd like to present John King for tonight's edition of King's Court. John, take it away.
And might I say, in my humble opinion, the 2012 wet dream ticket would be Badnarik Paul, or Paul Badnarik. Well, this is the last official King's Court of the year in 2010. And what a year it was. But it's nothing compared to 2011. The UK can expect more of the same with less, causing more uprising of the people. I predict there will be before spring a country such as Greece or Ireland to ask for a second bailout. This will enrage the people, and there is a high likelihood of an elite banker and or politician that will get mobbed and possibly killed by angry crowds. This will send shock waves around the globe and throughout the Illuminati pyramid. Mayor Bloomberg, I am very happy that your bid for president of the United States failed. Your office blames strikes, but in reality it's your incompetence who let the system fail. Then you have the nerve to come out and say complaining about it won't help matters any. Translated, that means I am an incompetent boob and I don't want to hear it. Thanks for showing me what a Bloomberg presidency would be like. Maybe all those people waiting for emergency services should deal with it silently as you put your head in the sand. Bush had Katrina, Obama has the Gulf, and you, sir, have the Bloomberg snow job. Now you can call me a terrorist, and you most likely will. I'm not. I'm just an American voicing his opinion and using his constitutional rights to do so. If you don't like it, then I suggest get the hell out of the kitchen, as public life advice scrutiny as politics does. Without it, we have a silent tyranny and an incompetent government. We have to hold you people accountable. You have all those out-of-work people in the city. Why not hire them to clean up and paint houses, clean parks? It's called workfare. You get the labor while the people get the income. It worked during the last depression, and it will work during this one. Now, sir, what are you going to do? Pray the sun comes out and melts the snow and claim victory over nature? Or will you take action and serve the people as you were elected to serve? Maybe Ithaca, New York, had the right idea with their Ithaca dollars. Take note, Mayor, and learn from the real people how to govern. Joe, back to you.
Well, John, that snow thing, that was what a debacle that was. But I mean, you talk about, I mean, and hey, guess what? New York is known for getting snow every once in a while, and now they're coming out and saying, "Oh yeah, the unions did it." It's who cares? I mean, it's crashing and burning. You know, now
the unions did what?
Yeah, the unions went and collaborated with each other to slow the snow removal down and cause a crisis as a protest to Bloomberg's cuts. And that's what the news is circulating about now. But does it really matter? Look, folks, New York City can't even clear snow out of the way. California is bankrupt. How many states are bankrupt right now? Our country's bankrupt. It doesn't really matter. Whether we can remove snow or not. The only thing that sucks is that people are suffering because of it. I think I read that it took 30 hours for an ambulance to get to some lady. That's ridiculous. In New York City? Anyway, we were talking about the UCC, and we were talking about states' rights. And Michael, why haven't we seen an Article 5 constitutional convention?
Again, mostly through ignorance. People are just waking up to the fact that there's a problem. They know that there is a problem. They don't know what's causing it or what the source of the problem is. An Article 5 constitutional convention would open up the Constitution to be rewritten, which, I admit that there are things in the Constitution which are, not as good as they could be, but opening up a constitutional convention at this point with all of the treachery going on in Washington, you may as well just burn it.
Right.
Just burn the Constitution, because that would be the death of it. And, if you want an example, people should go and read the United Nations Charter talking about rights. But if you read the wording, you realize that the natural rights they're talking about are all privileges granted by the United Nations. And, I have said many times, in fact, I say it at the beginning of every one of my Constitution classes, the primary reason for our problems in the United States, because Americans do not understand the difference between rights and privileges. And Chapter 2 of my book is available for free. People go to constitutionpreservation.org. Right there on the home page, I talk about this Chapter 2. You can download Chapter 2 as a PDF. Read that. If 300 million people read and understood Chapter 2, the difference between rights and privileges, then our political problems would start to disappear almost on their own, because people wouldn't put up with it. And I was fascinated with the predictions that were being made, the fact that an angry mob is going to hurt somebody in political power. I'm actually a little surprised that hasn't happened already.
Yeah.
But Americans are slow to anger. They take forever to pull their head out of the stand and get going. But when they do, they are an irresistible force. I said earlier that I almost feel sorry for the people who are going to be in government and the Federal Reserve when the American people, start thinking clearly, because, tar and feathers will probably be a good thing compared to some of the stuff that's going to happen.
I was saying earlier that, the Republicans have taken control of the House. And we all know that this left-right paradigm really isn't...
No, so we don't all know.
Oh, I'm saying...
You and I know, many of your listeners know.
That's right. But one of the things that they're doing, one of the smokescreen scam jobs that they're doing, is they're reading the Constitution when they first start this session of Congress. And I find it extremely interesting because many of these people, A, don't even know what it means when they're reading it, and B, they're not going to follow it. If they haven't followed it now in the last, 100 years? Since when are they going to follow it now? What does it matter? What's your thoughts on that? I kind of take offense to it.
I think that we should be indicting people, putting them in jail, and after their trial, proving that they are guilty of treason, that they should be put in prison for the rest of their life. This is long overdue.
Right.
The purpose of the Constitution and the government that it creates is to protect our life, liberty, and property. All of these politicians take an oath, quote, to protect and defend the Constitution, end quote. Well, if you take those words literally, we would have these people standing at the National Archive, you know, in front of a piece of parchment going, Joe, get away from here with that marker. I don't want another smudge in Article 3. I mean, that's what the words say, to protect and defend the Constitution.
That's right.
It's not the physical paper that we expect them to defend. It's the ideas in the Constitution, and the ideas in the Constitution are life, liberty, and property. So anybody who takes an oath of office is promising to protect your life, liberty, and property. Franklin Delano Roosevelt was president. Presumably he took this oath to protect your life, liberty, and property, and almost immediately passes House Joint Resolution 192 that says you're not allowed to own property if it happens to be gold. It is now illegal for Americans to own gold. I don't know how FDR got off the balcony, you know, without somebody shooting him.
You know, he was the one that wanted to expand the Supreme Court to 12 justices.
No, he wanted to expand it to 45.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean,
he wanted to expand it, and your listeners may or may not know that after, you know, the stock market crash, which is blamed for the Great Depression, it didn't cause the Great Depression. People are starving, and FDR came along and tried to pass a series of laws that we collectively refer to as the New Deal.
Mm-hmm.
And the Supreme Court kept saying, no, you can't do that. That's unconstitutional. That's unconstitutional too. No, you can't do that. Well, FDR was pissed because he couldn't push his socialist/communist agenda through, and he pointed out that the Constitution only says that the president will appoint judges. It doesn't say how many he will appoint. And when we started out, the Supreme Court started out with 5 judges. Then it went to 7. Then it went to 9. Then it went to 15. Then it went to 9. Then it went to 7. Then it's been back at 9 pretty much ever since the Civil War. It's always been an odd number. And, you know, if anybody thinks about it for 30 seconds, that's so there are no ties.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you always have a tiebreaker number, an odd number. So FDR was upset because the Supreme Court wouldn't let him push his collectivist agenda through. And he threatened to appoint as many as 45 judges to the Supreme Court. Well, the Supreme Court realized they would look more like a high school reunion than, you know, the highest court in the land, and they go, well, give us that piece of paper again. Let us look at that. And the same laws that were unconstitutional in 1932 were suddenly, oh my gosh, I guess they've morphed into a constitutional law now that it's 1934 and the Supreme Court. And so basically the FDR played a game of political chicken with the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court blinked and has been basically useless to us ever since.
Yeah, it sure has. I mean, minus a couple of things, but I mean, it's really politically driven at this point. To say that they have objectivity, I mean, I haven't seen it. I just see them vote party line or conservative or liberal or whatever it is. But really, they all have a slant. When, you know, our founding fathers were pretty clear when they said, you know, that you don't interpret the Constitution. The Constitution says what it says. There's no interpreting it. You can't make it say something that it doesn't.
But you've got to understand the premise, the principles, the philosophy on which it is founded. And those principles are my life, my liberty, my private property. When Ms. Sotomayor was being reviewed by the Senate in her confirmation hearing, I was drinking a lot of Pepto-Bismol in order to watch it, but I was listening, and somebody on the bench asked her what her position is on property rights, and her answer was a very simple: you don't have any. this woman is going to be is now on the Supreme Court,
right?
And she doesn't think that I have private property rights.
And you know what I got told, Michael, because I heard that too, and I know what you mean by Pepto-Bismol. It made me sick, but you know what I got told? Well, she's replacing one of the more liberal judges anyway, so it's a wash.
Well, that makes it okay.
Yeah.
It's like there are 4 sexual predators on the Supreme Court, and she's just replacing another sexual predator, so it's okay.
It's okay.
It's like, does that make any rational sense to anybody?
No, but that's the point, is that's where this country is now. That it's okay. That's the type of logic that's there. You know? Me personally, see, I'll give you an example. Bobby Jindal, when faced with the Gulf oil catastrophe down in the Gulf, was being harassed and being bullied by the federal government to not take action or to wait till the Army Corps of Engineers did things. And if I was governor, good Lord, man, that's my coastline right there. You want to know something? I'm going to take action, and the government go blow, and then I know what's going to happen. The government will come back and say, "Well, we're going to have to take away all your federal funding." Yes, and that's at that point I'd have my if at first you don't
why don't
secede,
we take away the federal government's funding and have 300 million people just stop paying their taxes?
Why not? Why not? But even further, Michael, how about Jindal stop being the bag man for the federal government and say, you know what? Well, from now on, all those payroll taxes that you get, well, we're going to keep them. We'll put them to good use here in our state because we don't need you anymore. And that's when I put on, at first you don't secede, try again, my T-shirt, hey, woohoo. And that's what we do if I was governor, maybe, because I'll tell you what, that was the biggest debacle that I've ever seen, and it's still going on today. People don't realize that this is going to be a long-term issue that they're going to have to deal with down there, and it was a joke. They handled it like that from the beginning, and it stinks. And the state did not take up the power that they have, their constitutional power, because anything that's not dictated in the Constitution is a federal power, is reserved for the states or to the people. So they should have went and took the bull by the horns and took care of it, And it was just a perfect example of just how out of touch everybody is about how things should be. And look at what it caused. And look at what it's going to cause down the road with health issues. We look at 9/11. People are dying from mesothelioma and respiratory illnesses now 10 years later after 9/11 because, there was all that asbestos in there, But the air was safe to breathe. Yeah, sure, of course, because they couldn't allow New York to shut down. That's why it was safe to breathe. It wasn't safe to breathe. But that's what I'm talking about. I mean, we are just so far past the point of no return that it just makes me literally sick to my stomach.
Keep talking. I'm reloading.
No, that's Now, Gwen, in South Dakota, do they have? Are you hearing anything about secession? Because I know down in the South, it's starting to gain a little bit of traction. At least, maybe not in the political circles, but within the populace. People are starting to talk about, hey, you know what? The government's out of control, man. We need to get out of this.
Among the Tea Partiers, we have, in the community where I live, we have 2 very large and very active Tea Party organizations, and we have a group called the Wingnuts, and there are Republicans and Tea Partiers generally that ilk of thinking that come to that meeting that are politically active, and every one of them are they're just flat out almost demanding it. They're just saying, this is out of control. We don't want this. I'll give you a perfect example. I was studying earlier today the state budget because I fully intend to attend the next Joint Appropriations Committee hearing. Our legislative session starts the 11th of January, so I'm getting my ducks in a row because I tell you, they hate it when I appear in the Capitol. You see a chairman of all kinds of things running. But the Department of Social Services has a budget of over $900 million. They are asking for an increase of $38 million in their budget. We have, according to our last census, 812,000 people. So my thought, and what I told my representatives for my district is, you could give every single adult in this state $1 million to cover all of their social service needs, their food, their housing, their medical, and not only would the state save money, but look at all the small mom and pop businesses that would prop up. We would have all these people out actually stimulating the economy, and we would be saving millions of dollars in doing that. But people they're just sick of the feds. They're sick of the money. They're sick of being controlled by the federal money that the state takes.
I heard the same argument when the bailout happened, and the argument was, instead of giving it to the banks, give it to the people. Why not just You got 330 million people, you got $787 billion. Say tax it at 40%. And I'm just giving you a round figure, but people get let's say you tax it in half, you get $1 million. I said the problem or the argument that people were making to me was, well, now you got everybody with $1 million, so there's going to be a run on Cadillac Escalades, and the price of Cadillac Escalades are going to go from like $50,000 to $200,000 because the demand's going to spike, and you're going to end up seeing inflation and everything else because all this. But don't worry, because
Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
You just cut out for a minute.
Oh, yeah. The BTR is having some problem with their bandwidth tonight, so it may cut out from time to time. But like I said, the argument that they made was simply that when you have so many people with that much money, then the cost of everything goes up because the demand spikes. And okay, so supply and demand, that's fine. I'll still take my chances with that over giving it to the lying, cheating banksters. That's my point.
Yeah.
I don't care how much the price goes up. People would be better off if that's the case, if that's what they're going to do. It was wrong to do it in the first place, but the fact of the matter is that if you are going to do something scandalous like that and put it on the back of our children and children's children, well, then you know what? Give it to the people. It's their money anyway.
Right. And, I think that the reason that they don't do that is because they lose some level of control, well, all level of control over the people. They want us broke, poor, and controllable. I just can't see anything that would justify the behavior of our government, except that they're a corporation, they're in business to make money, and they're doing it at our expense, and it's completely and utterly unacceptable in my book. And I'm with Michael in that, I'm standing. They might take me down, but by God, they're going to take me standing. I'll be damned if I'm going to grovel and go on my knees like a slave. Bottom line.
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right, and I too am right on par with what Michael was saying earlier about that. That you cannot. If you are aware of what's going on, then you can't stand idly by and do nothing. You just can't, because you're shirking your responsibility. Everybody has a responsibility to make sure that our rights are maintained, that that the Constitution, the rule of law, is maintained, and it's not anymore. The rule of law is a joke these days. Yeah, it's funny. I got pulled over like 2 months ago for a speeding ticket, and this guy was parked. This police officer was parked about 20 feet in on private property, radar gunning people. And I simply asked him, I said, so where's the letter of consent from the owner saying that he gave you permission to sit on his property and do that? You know? And the fact of the matter is that didn't happen. There was no letter of consent. They just don't care. They don't care about personal property rights or anything like that. It's a real sad state of affairs we live in today. You know, this is just, it's crazy. What do you think, Michael?
We established the government and specifically the police to protect us. Who's going to protect us when the police are committing the crimes? What are you going to do? Call the police?
Yeah, let's call the police.
And have, you know, add people. I mean, they're just like the Crips and the Bloods in many cases. You know, they just wear nicer uniforms and they're better organized. They've taken an oath to protect and defend my life, my liberty, my private property. And if they're not doing that, they're guilty of treason. You know, being a police officer does not give you carte blanche to do whatever you want. You know, you don't get to, you know, find an attractive woman and have sex with her just because you're wearing a badge. That's called rape.
Right, exactly
and
right.
If you are doing that, you know, you are outside the law. That makes you an outlaw.
Right.
And if I happen to come on the scene, you know, I will put you in the hospital. Because, you know, if I kill you, then the pain stops. I want you to know for a long time that was the wrong thing to do.
Yep. Now, here's something else that's kind of funny, too, you know. Years ago, I was in the military and doing a security clearance survey. And they still have the same survey today. I don't know if you can find it on the internet. I'm sure you can. It's like a 95-page survey that you've got to fill out, and you know they investigate you and your background and everything else. Make sure you're not a quote unquote terrorist. But one of the things that they asked, which was most peculiar, and I think that you people in the audience tonight, and Michael, I'm sure you'll enjoy this too, was that have you at any time ever done anything to suppress anyone's constitutional rights? The government is asking me if I did anything to suppress anybody's constitutional rights. And my response was simply, no, but the government sure as heck has suppressed many people's constitutional rights. So why are you asking me? And, of course, you know, it's kind of funny, but I never got a single response back from that. As a matter of fact, my security...
You didn't get that, John?
No, I did.
Oh, you did?
I did. And I never got anything back from it. It's almost like they ignored it, which, you know, of course, I think it's all a scam job anyway, all that kind of stuff. But case in point, the government's asking me if I suppress somebody's constitutional rights? I mean, isn't that the pot calling the kettle black?
Well, they just want to make sure that you're not cutting in on their territory. That's their job, to suppress everybody's constitutional rights. They don't want you going off on your own, making a little bit of profit, doing what they're doing.
Let me ask you this, Michael. Do they suppress our constitutional rights, or do we let them, or do we not choose to exercise them? Let me ask you that. Do you think it's a suppression tactic, or do you think we just choose not to exercise them? Because we're all men and women of free will.
It is a little of both. Very little. I mean, sometimes they will occasionally violate your rights. Kick down your door at 2 o'clock in the morning. They got the TV cameras. They have you in handcuffs, and they're, you know, tossing the house looking for illegal drugs. And it was an anonymous tip. There are no illegal drugs there. Oops, sorry. We're not even going to fix the door that we knocked down. I mean, that's a clear, deliberate violation of your rights.
Mm-hmm.
The other that you mentioned is far more common. We do not stand up for ourselves. Well, it's only a small, you know, I've been listening to people on the news go, you know, if it makes the airplane safer and they get a couple of naked photos of me, whatever, it's a small price to pay. No, it's not a small price to pay. It's a violation of your privacy, and the government shouldn't be doing that. And so there are those of us who do stand up. We don't have a driver's license. We don't fill out 1040 forms. We, don't jump through hoops every time the government tells us we're supposed to. And, those of us are high on the list. When they declare martial law, will probably be a day or two after those of us on that list have been rounded up and taken to the concentration camps. But I've said many times, I'm not going to a concentration camp. I won't live that long. I know my rights, and I will fight for my rights. I hope I don't have to die for them, but if that's what's necessary, I would much rather die on my feet than live on my knees.
That's true. Yeah. Now, I have a question for you, Michael, and then Gwen, I'll get to you. When you travel, now you do your Constitution class, and that there's a need for you to travel from Texas to places all over the country. Now, do you have a driver's license or some sort of state-issued ID?
I don't have a driver's license. I do have a passport that I use. Passport is for a U.S. citizen or U.S. national, and inasmuch as I am a Texas citizen, that's the basic broad definition of a U.S. national. But my passport is scheduled to expire in September, and having run for Congress and run for president and traveling around, I'm on an airplane almost as often as many pilots. My passport has seen better days. And almost, not every time, but almost every time I stop, they do the check, they take your ticket and your ID, they look at me and they look at the passport and they get out that little light to make sure that it's not a forgery. And they always want to know, well, what the hell happened to your passport? How come your passport looks like it's, it's seen 27 miles of bad road?
Because it has.
Because it has. I tell them. I said, I ran for president of the United States in 2004 and flew approximately 75,000 miles in 5 months. And they, like a kid out of town, they think I said, no, look it up. There's my name on the passport. Do a Google search. You'll see probably about 6 million hits for my name. So, yeah, so the question really is, do I renew the passport? Because I'm fairly certain that the next passport I get will have an RFID chip in it.
Yes, it will.
And I don't want an identification with an RFID chip. I don't know if it's possible to get a passport without the chip, or if you have a passport without the chip, if they will let you on the plane.
No, it's not. As a matter of fact, what happens is when you get the passport, on the passport there's a little gold picture of an RFID chip, and that's where it is. It's right there. And no, there's no skirting it. If you want a passport, you got to have the RFID chip.
Well, then I'm probably not going to have a passport after September, and, people are going to have to come to Texas if they want to take the class. Of course, by that time, the economy will crash, the airlines will be out of business anyway, people will be scrambling around for food. I was in the car with a friend of mine about a month ago, and we were talking about, how expensive food is already. And I was joking. I told him that I had a little tablet, and I was keeping track of all the neighborhood dogs and cats. And it took him a while to realize that I was talking about eating those animals when food gets scarce. And I meant it as a joke, but I think that before long, people are going to be doing that. They probably won't eat their own pets, but if there are squirrels or raccoons in the neighborhood, the population probably diminish rather rapidly.
John King, you got something to add to this conversation tonight?
Yeah, he sounds a lot like me, Joe, that raccoon or possum over the spit. I'm very well prepared for that.
I was a Boy Scout for 12 years and a Scoutmaster for 10 more, so I know I'm going to die, but I'm not going to starve to death.
No, that's for sure. I mean, and John is definitely he's a canner. John is like, if there was a PhD in canning, he would have it, because that guy cans everything. I mean, it's really he's got it down to a science. And survival is going to be key, especially in now, is knowing who you can trust. I mean, trust is a very, very precious commodity. And like you were saying, Michael, it's pretty much going to be every man, woman for themselves. And one thing that we say on our show for all the time is self and family. When you boil it down to the bare minimum, that's what you've got, self and family. And after that, anything else you get is gravy. But that's the thing that you can count on most, is yourself and your immediate family.
Well, Joe, if you and I are in an airplane, it's crashing, there's only one parachute, I'll write nice things about you.
Yes, that's right. Exactly right. And vice versa.
Hey, guys.
Yes, sir.
I do know that the new passports have the RFID chip in them. However, say a hammer or a heavy object should fall upon that RFID chip, rendering it ineffective or not working, they would still have to accept your passport, correct?
No,
No, not necessarily.
Go to the State Department website. It covers that.
Yeah, if your RFID chip is broken, then the passport is invalid.
Yeah. Mhm.
They would treat a broken RFID chip the same as they would treat a forged passport.
Yeah, it's really bad. Now, Gwen, I know you were trying to say something earlier. Did you want to interject something into this?
No.
Okay, good.
Oh no. I don't have a passport. What I would like to say though is that my son, he's 11, and we don't have a television, but we sometimes will buy movies, and we watch them on the laptop. But he has found that they have RFID chips in those things, and he always takes them out. And now he's starting to show his sister and his friends, take those out. They can track you with that. And
sure,
he throws
they can.
them in the garbage.
Well, they're
I'm
tracking.
So proud of him.
They're tracking the DVD. If you're getting it from Netflix or something like that, it's just so they can, it's like going to the library. They need to know who had the book out, and so they know when you bring it back. There are legitimate uses for RFIDs, but we just don't want the government collecting all that information and using a master database to, predict the way we'll work like white rats.
No, you're absolutely right. I know Walmart is actually. There's been quite a lot of use of RFID in the private industry. For example, I know that Kraft, for like Philadelphia cream cheese and all this, there's RFID sometimes in that to track how many are being bought at what store and things of that nature. Yeah, there are legitimate uses. The problem is that technology, the risk of it being abused is so great that,
and that's because people don't know how it works. And I'd like to take a moment to plug a book that was written by my friend Catherine Albrecht.
Sure.
The name of the book is Spy Chips, and I think if you just Google Spy Chips, it's a small book, very easy to read. I've been a computer programmer for many decades, let's say, and I can assure you that everything that she writes in that book is technologically true. It's here right now. And when you read that book, she shows you the applications. And as a computer programmer, I was horrified. This is worse than 1984.
Wow, that's and again, it's only one step in the grand scheme of things for total control. And we're just going down that rabbit hole quicker than you wouldn't believe. Let's go to the phones. I've got Mike from Minnesota. You are live on the air. Go ahead, Mike.
Thanks for taking my call. Well, it's my first time calling. Anyways, hi, Griff. Hi, Mike. And anyhow, my question is about the pets. Is people will come out to the country eventually for the cities that never have hunted, and by this time the doctors aren't going to be available or whatever. I mean, you read in the paper, listen on the radio during hunting season out here of people, some of the tragic accidents, and many of them stupid, and people die. And these are people who hunt every year. Now, you throw in all the people coming out for the city who've never hunted in their lives, minus any medical facilities, for lack of a dollar, or what have you, EMP. I give it within about 14 months. The American white-tailed deer, which is as thick as the grass in the ground out here, will be almost extinct. Same thing for squirrels. Rabbits, anything that crawls or flies will be gone because there will be no DNR in any state. Matter of fact, the DNR might be right next to you hunting, competing with you for the same rabbit or bear. And
with a little bit of luck, these inexperienced hunters will take each other out, and so the competition won't be nearly as bad.
But I mean, you do have a lot of people that that do hunt, that know what they're doing. Myself, I don't. I raise animals, hogs, things of that nature, and so. And we have plenty of food. I know how to, I've been canning for some time now. And so, I've gave tons of equipment away to family and whatnot just to make sure they weren't without. And so, but I think this really will come about as far as the scarcity of game because of the lack of food, maybe because of lack of a dollar. But it will happen.
Absolutely.
It will happen.
No,
absolutely. There's no doubt.
Carp will be the next sushi.
And thank you for the call, Mike. Yeah, I mean, it's really a cascading problem because you think about it. When the economy collapses, I think they say there's only about 3 days worth of food in the cities, the supermarkets, or whatever before all that's gone. And then you figure that people, anybody that doesn't try to stick it out in the city, and you'd be stupid to do it, would try and fan out and do whatever they can to survive. Now, mind you, although I think there's something along the lines of how many guns are there in America, Michael? Would you say? Would you estimate?
Well, I think there were about 300 million before Barack Obama got elected, and I'm told that 85 million have been added. So, somewhere just shy of 400 million guns. Right. So there's about 400 million guns. But I wonder how many people actually own them. You know what I mean? Instead of we have 310 million people, 312 million people that live here, but obviously 312 million people are not gun owners. So out of that, you have however many millions of people that don't even own a gun, wouldn't know how to hunt or do anything like that. So those people are pretty much done in. But then you have everybody that's left. So now the food's gone, and all of a sudden, he's right. They go after every wild game that they possibly can and ransack everything that they can, and eventually the food's going to run out there too. Unless there's some sort of reestablishment of some sort of civil society or rule of law. I mean, you're talking about a free-for-all, and that food is going to be scarce. It most certainly will be. So, this has some far-reaching implications, an economic collapse of this magnitude.
Joe, if I can address that real quick, I think while people have the opportunity, they should be researching things like hydroponics and deep water culture systems. Go to Walmart, get yourself some blue bins, get yourself some Miracle-Gro topsoil, and get yourself some CFL light bulbs and learn how to grow indoors either through soil or hydroponically. go on YouTube and watch those videos on how to grow things, and or friend a stoner. I mean, if there's one person that really knows how to grow on the lowdown and on the cheap, it's going to be the stoner, and he's going to really know how to handle the plant indoors, so he can teach you a lot. Back to you guys. Sorry for the interruption.
No, John, no interruption at all. That's that is pretty good. You think about it, Michael. Find your local stoner, and he can tell you exactly how to grow things indoors.
Yeah, but he's not growing anything you want to eat.
No, that's for sure. Or maybe so. Maybe some people do.
You got to have brownies to put it in. So.
That's right.
Hydroponic tomatoes are about 3 to 4 times bigger than the real grown tomatoes, and you can grow peppers, lettuce, and the science that he's using to grow his cannabis can be applied to grow bell peppers and beefsteak tomatoes. That's my point.
Oh, we understand. I think we're just being somewhat facetious. We're trying to bring humor to a humorless subject.
It really is. It's a very serious subject, and when it boils down to it, you almost, as much as you hate to joke about it, gosh, I mean, it's so dire, the situation that we're in, and I just don't see much of a positive outcome outside of the fact that you truly will be free when this happens. You know what I mean? It's going to be, you're going to understand what it means to be totally free when this goes down, because you won't have the government breathing down your neck. You may have people wanting your stuff, but that's up to you to defend it. And it's going to be some perilous times, and I mean, we're knocking right at the door here, and it's not just the government collapsing. We're talking about earth changes that are underway that we've been seeing for quite some time, and the weather's had some tremendous effect on just the food supply as it is now, among other things. Look at over in Ireland. There's thousands of people right now without fresh water or flushing toilets because the pipes weren't buried deep enough to handle the cold snap. So the frost line has gone below where they buried the pipes, and now all the pipes are bursting. I mean, they're in a real pickle out there.
One of the things I'm kind of curious. There about a year or two ago, we heard a lot of talk about the Mayan calendar, 2012. And now we're just a few short hours away from 2011, and I haven't heard anybody talking about 2012. Is that because they don't think those predictions will come true, or have they just, there's just nothing else left to say? I mean, I really don't care. I mean, I still plan to be here, but I just find it interesting that society as a whole has kind of stopped worrying about the Mayan calendar. A lot of people misunderstood that, 2012 was going to be the end of the world. No, it's not the end of the world. It's the end of the calendar. I mean, just like we're going to do tomorrow. Tomorrow's the last day of 2010. It's not the end of the world. It's the end of that calendar. You throw that calendar in the garbage can, and you put the new one up.
Mm-hmm.
And so the only difference is the Mayan calendar lasts for, a couple thousand years?
Right. I think it's, I can't remember exactly how much it is, but, yeah, I mean, it is.
So we just throw that Mayan calendar away and go to the next Mayan calendar.
Well, I mean, one thing that I do know about the ancients were that they were they were a lot more in touch with nature and with the cosmos, and they understood things that even today our most brilliant scientists don't understand. And they knew things about what's happening. Now, do I think the planet's going to up and explode? Absolutely not. I do not. I absolutely don't think that's going to happen. Do I think that there's some cyclical events that are going on that's causing the weather to be crazy and wacky? Absolutely, I do. And I think those cyclical events are what's causing it. I think that the abnormal quietness of the sun right now, very, very out of the ordinary, is going to lead to a very, very active period, which is why you see all of the chatter on the mainstream news and in the back channels about get ready. The grid can go out at any time. You see NASA talking about it. They're having conferences over in Egypt. It's very crazy. I mean, I do see some catastrophic events coming out and are coming up here, but I think that we'll persevere and I think that we'll survive. And now
some of us will.
Yeah, not everybody's going to.
Yeah.
But there will be. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that it's, and no one can tell. You know, I think that December 21st, 2012 is a deception. And me, myself, being a believer in what many people call Christianity, you know, Jesus said that he comes as a thief in the night. You won't know what day or time that happens. Well, then, if the end of the world is December 21st, 2012, that kind of goes against that. I just don't buy it. Not for a second.
That's just the end of the calendar.
Right, exactly right.
Like the end of 2010 is going to end on December 31st. It's just a day on the calendar. It doesn't mean that, I mean, we give it significance.
Right. Absolutely right. Now, Michael, we got about 3 minutes left. How do people go and purchase a copy of your book if they want to purchase a copy of your book or your DVD set?
They go to my website, constitutionpreservation.org.
That's constitutionpreservation.org, folks, and they can also request a class for you to come out.
Absolutely, It should be obvious that I can't travel across the country to teach 5 people, so I need a minimum of 30 people. So if you'd like me to come to your town, you need to get all your family, your friends, your neighbors, your coworkers to go to my website and request a city. All the people in your city request, my town, North Carolina, and when I see 30 or 40 people from the same place, I will start making phone calls, send an email going, hey, if everybody is still interested, I'll get on the airplane.
That's fantastic. Well, Michael, it was fantastic having you here tonight. And it was some great conversation. I mean, I love talking about this stuff, and I can talk about it for hours at a time.
Well, thank you for having me. I want to thank all of your listeners for being kind enough to pay attention while we're, trying to solve the problems of the world. But they need to realize that you and I are not going to be able to solve the problem. Ron Paul is not the hero. He just has the right ideas. We have to back those ideas. Everybody has to get involved. Mm-hmm. I've told people for many years that when I die, liberty is no longer my problem. Good luck.
It is true. It is true. Now, folks, on the next show will be Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, and tentatively scheduled I have John Moore coming on the broadcast. So that's Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern here on the Intel Hub News Network. For John King and A.C. Griffiths, this is Joe Joseph. Thank you for coming out tonight and listening to the show. Have a great and pleasant evening.